Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We have Larry on his phone down there in the Southland. How's it going, Larry?
Oh, kind of cold down here in the Southland. Real early, and I saw an Arctic blast coming down on you guys later, I guess, and it looks like winter's going to be here early.
Yeah, we were down almost to like 10 degrees here, I guess, the other night. It's really getting cold, way too cold for this time of year. Before we get rolling on some major news, I want to get onto this thing that we read, and I did verify what the fellow said about the Shumann Resonance. And the more I've investigated this, I have to tell you, the more frightening it becomes. And it ties right directly into the strong delusion. I don't want to waste a lot of time on this, but enough so that I'm going to do a special report on it. It's going to take at least an hour. I'll have to pre-record it, and then I'll put it up here on Night Shadows. But there's a lot to this, but it all ties together, and there is a reason why it says what it says in Thessalonians concerning the strong delusion and the arrival. Verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now this arrival is closely related, and Larry, break in anywhere you want here, is closely related to the precursor cosmic energy waves that are already rippling through our solar system. And there's something going on in the sun, Larry. I just was on space weather, and it looks like another big hole has developed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And also, I forwarded you an article today. Space Weather now is saying that we're seeing the possible end of the solar minimum and the beginning of the new solar cycle, which means that the flares may be coming.
Yeah, this is the sun is very, very anomalous, folks. I mean, it really, really is. And every once in a while, the setting of the sun is either too early or it's way too late, or it's in the wrong spot, and nobody will admit to it. They even had some people, I believe, in Norway that reported that the sun didn't rise for 2 days. They know exactly when it's supposed to rise above the horizon, because they're almost in perpetual darkness up there at times of the year. And what they were told was, well, you must have had a land subsidence and the mountains rose, and that's why you didn't see the sun. I mean, absolutely ridiculous thing. But and the Inuit Indians have likewise said the same thing, that something is shifting, something is going wrong. Well, tied into all this is the Shumann Resonance. But before we get into that, more and more people are reporting that they are tired, that they lack energy, and we'd like reports from everybody listening, unable to concentrate as well as you could before, brain fog, sort of like a fog over the brain that slows down your thinking, and it increases forgetfulness, and you may not even know exactly what you're doing. more aches and pains all over the body, muscle aches, soreness, arthritic flare-ups, inability to sleep well, often waking up, having trouble getting back to sleep, and in some cases, severe insomnia. Now, a lot of this has to do with frequency and your mind. It operates on a certain level. Now, I want to get into the Shumann resonance a little bit. Shumann resonance, which measures the electromagnetic field of planet Earth, has increased in the last 2 months. Researchers cannot find a logical explanation for this. According to the scientists, the Earth displacement is happening faster than they expected. Now, Shumann resonance has been a natural and constant frequency of planet Earth, pulsating exactly at 7.83 hertz for thousands of years. Now, that is 7 plus 8, and 8 plus 3 is 11, so it's a 711. And the only reason I bring that up is there was a guy by the name of Ron Reese. I haven't heard from him for a while, but he was told, he said by the Lord, that 711 was a huge number, but he didn't know, he wasn't told why or what it meant. We may now know why. 7.83 actually is coded as a 711. Anyway, the Western world, the Shumann resonance represents the frequency of the Earth electromagnetic field. It is always concentrated at 783 hertz, or 7.83 hertz, and a few variations since 1952. But as of June 2014, there was a change. This is when the Russian Space Observatory System showed a sudden increase in activity with a varied elongation from 8.5 hertz to 16.5. More recently, other peaks have been detected, increasing the planet's frequency to more than 30 hertz. Now, here's what's interesting. I found an article where the highest so far, Larry, is 90. It has already spiked up to 90. Now, everybody might be saying, well, so what? What's that got to do with anything? Well, the 7.83 pulse is Mother Earth's frequency, and your brain, your mind, is basically attuned in that area. The speculation, now I'll get back to the article, speculation is based on the fact that Shumann frequency is in tune with the human brain, alpha and theta. These increasing resonance correspond, of course, to the activity of human brain waves, which means that the Earth would be adjusting its frequency of vibration. Now, this gets really, really kind of spooky, and I'm going to have to do a special report on it. This may be the explanation for the strange feeling we have that time is passing more quickly these days. The reason is apparently linked to the excess speed of Shumann resonance, which makes us feel a 24-hour period as if it were approximately 16 hours. Now, you may remember the prophecy of the sun, the moon, and the stars giving only reducing their time by 1/3. Remember that, Larry?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you go to a 16-hour day, you have reduced everything by 1/3. Now, I know, and I don't know about you, Larry, but I've gotten a lot of reports, and I myself have noticed it. You don't, how do I word this? You don't really notice a time increase unless you measure it against things you used to be able to do in a certain period of time. Have you noticed any change in that, Larry? I know other people have.
Yeah, when you work like we do, you and I both, we got blogs, you do, audios and videos, etc. And when you work all day, you realize suddenly that what you thought you could get done like you used to anymore, you can't find the time that you used to have. So something has definitely changed. And also, Stewart, I told you today that it got dark here way too early, just way too early, even, from the last few days. So something is definitely off.
Yeah, and I remember, I don't know, when was it, a couple, 3 years ago, that the sun was setting around 7:30, and it set around 8:30. I mean, it was way off. And, of course, they're not saying anything. They just roll their eyes if you report it and say you're nuts, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really the only way you can measure it is the time it takes to get something done. And a lot of folks out there report that it's taking far more time to get a task done than it used to. And that means time, or what we consider time, is speeding up. You look at a clock saying it is 9 a.m., you set about to do something that only took 20 minutes before, but now it's 10 o'clock when you finish it and look at the clock. Another item we have to watch is deep solar minimum, because your solar wind decreases. Solar wind creates a huge bubble all the way well beyond even the solar system itself, well beyond Pluto and all of that. When you go into solar minimum, the solar winds decrease. That bubble keeps all the cosmic radiation, deep space cosmic radiation from the Milky Way galaxy, et cetera, it holds it at bay. It actually creates a shock wave out there. They've actually measured it. When solar wind decreases, it allows this deep space cosmic radiation to come inbound and eventually hit planet Earth. Now, if you go to space weather, they have a chart, stratospheric radiation, in which it shows it's increased by 18% on an almost steady rise. In fact, the rise of radiation is so great now that even the Federal Aviation Agency has alerted flight crews, and especially pregnant stewardesses, not to fly the northern routes because of this. Now, I want to read something here from Cliff High and the Bots. And he talks about unknown energies from space. And he calls it this set, one of the original sets, prompting the creation of the energies as terminating sets from Terra Earth entity that are in their turn cross-link back over to the global population, where the link ends in sets going to broken, interrupted sleep, mental states under duress, and mental states slightly but noticeably unbalanced and not centered, and others of similar nature. The narrative coming from the detailed layers of all these areas would have mainstream media having discussions about global sleep pattern interruptions. And I just read, Larry, I don't know if you saw it, about the stress levels of the American people. And the number of people that are reporting much higher stress levels is really immense at this point in time.
Yeah,
what do you think?
A lot of that's going on, and of course you can also hear and read about the large numbers of people that can't rest, can't sleep, hurt all the time. This is the last year or two, Stewart. This has increased. I mean, everywhere. And as you said in the beginning of the show, I cannot tell you the number of people that have contacted me that are having problems. I mean, physical problems with their body electric. Something is off.
Yeah. And many people the world over are having more and more sleep problems, and this is coming from the article, losing it or snapping. They just lose it. You see it on TV news almost every day. People are on edge, tense, nervous, angry. No, this is probably the electromagnetic environment that's causing this. Now, this is where it gets interesting if people really want to know what's happening and how dangerous this really, really is getting. I read you the Strong Delusion. The Strong Delusion seems to center upon an arrival from the stars, the Star Nation people of the Native American tribes, almost all of which have tales of long-ago visits from the stars. This would be the arrival of the sons of God found in Genesis. The NSA Acclamation Project has been at work for a long time with the advent of sci-fi movies, TV shows, books, and magazines that are devoted to the aliens coming to Earth, to acclimate the people of Earth that we are not alone and that we may have visitors who will claim they come from other solar systems and other planets. Something that the Book of Enoch and the Bible warn us is a total lie. They are fallen ones posing as extraterrestrials and are part of the Strong Delusion. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There may be a bit more to this delusion or deception, as it appears from verses 11 and 12, that unless one is truly under the wings of the Lord, no one can stand up against this delusion. In other words, it appears that humanity becomes hypnotized, mental, has to do with frequency, and cannot escape it unless protected by God himself. If this is true, and it appears that it is, this means that the minds of humanity have been altered. And this means that the delusion is also a mental change, a mind change, and the arrival is simply an external part of the delusion. If one's mind is altered to such a degree as suggested, they could not escape it. And that ties directly back to New Age ascension concepts, which is a mental change, an evolutionary change that is suggested by the Book of Enoch, that humanity thinks they have ascended and become gods. It is indicative of a huge internal DNA change, a euphoric feeling that blinds the minds to the real truth of what is happening. The New Age concepts of an ascension into what they call God consciousness is in total agreement with the Strong Delusion in the Book of Enoch. It is all about a change in the electromagnetic environment, a rise in frequencies. Remember that emotions and feelings are used in movies and music to alter your consciousness. And they also go into emotions and feelings. Now, this is very, very important. As Larry will tell you, I'm sure he's done a number of domestics. Any police officer will tell you a domestic call is one of the worst kinds of police activity because the parties involved have allowed emotions and feelings to totally take over, and there is no reasoning. There is no rational thought. Therefore, the police usually attempt to isolate the people involved, let them cool off so that reason and rational thinking returns. Is that correct, Larry?
Well, that is true because people involved in domestics, if you will, is the problems are unsolvable because neither one relents and neither one can accept reason in considering the options. I mean, it's a total no-go. And Stewart, believe it or not, that is exactly what America is having at the moment, like a complete massive continental delusionary domestic.
Yes, and this is what I'm glad you brought that up, because this has all to do with frequency, folks. This is real. I mean, this is really real. They know what, for example, on the frequency levels, the lower you go are the shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear. The higher you go, you get into reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, etc., etc. Now, here's what's interesting. There's a reason why deep state left is using emotions to usher in the New World Order, and why divide and conquer using emotional activities, and that is why the far left communists cannot even be reasoned with, because it's like Larry just said, it's an emotional domestic, and reason and rational thought are not part of this at all. That's why you can't reason with them. Now, carry this over. Let me scroll down here. Understanding brain waves. We have gamma rays, which are at the highest, beta, alpha, theta, delta, and infra low. Now, the Shumann resonance, remember the figures we gave you. Beta. This is where the adrenaline, anxiety, high arousal, and inability to relax or stress. That's exactly where the Shumann resonance appears to have lifted to, because it's around 16.5 and going up a little bit. Now, when we hit gamma, we go into too much anxiety, high arousal, high stress. But here's something else that they add to it. Mystical and astral experience. Ascension. Folks, that's the ascension. This is scary stuff, because as the Shumann resonance changes, the human mind will be moving out of its alpha normal or theta, whatnot, into the beta range and the gamma range on a constant basis. So if the Earth is undergoing a Shumann resonance change, which the evidence says it is, this means that humanity's minds will also be changed, and this is what the New Age concepts of an evolutionary leap is all about. It's the strong delusion. It's amazing what we're beginning to find out. And he says that if the arithmetic is rising, then shouldn't that allow our brains to be able to pick up greater frequencies that are even higher than the stressed state of high beta brainwaves? Now, we are in the stress period right now, and the Shumann resonance frequencies bear that out, that this is actually what's going on. This is what brings war, anger, a domestic, the lack of reasoning. So mankind basically goes through a period of basic insanity. That's scary. And then they come out on the other side to a euphoric rise into what they call the ascension. And you may remember the Bulgarian, I think he was a Bulgarian mystic, who said that a cosmic wave of fire was going to come through, and it would actually take away certain people, which I believe is the rapture of the church, and the ones left behind go through this euphoric ascension period. Increases in frequency create increases in consciousness. And when our consciousness increases, we have much greater awareness. And that's what gamma brainwaves are. Gamma brainwaves, which can be more than twice as high beta brainwaves, represents an aroused state in the brain. However, they are not connected to the survival states of emergency mode, but are more correlated with a kind of superconsciousness and awareness, higher amounts of love and compassion. Everybody knows love is the answer. The question then becomes, what kind of love are we talking about here? The love of God, which humanity does not know because it was cut off from it at the fall, etc., etc., etc. It gets very, very interesting, folks. And that is why in Thessalonians it says exactly what it says, because when it says they receive not the love of the truth, it's not talking about human loves at all. It's talking about divine love. Big difference. Big difference between all the human loves. Anyway, I'm going to have a special report on this because this is so important. And we do know that the frequency ranges are increasing. We've got the charts. We can prove it. They measured this all the time, and it has gone from 7.83. It bounces around, but it's going all the way to 59. And this spike is very, very serious and is probably responsible for the high levels of anxiety and stress and emotional anger that we're seeing not only in America but all over the world. I mean, we have revolutions and uprisings and people taking to the streets just all over the world. There's got to be a reason for it. Well, we would like to say, well, this is global deep state and they're just doing it. Well, that may be true to a point, but a lot of people, you couldn't get them to leave their couch or change a channel, let alone go out and demonstrate. Something is happening, just like Larry said, something is happening that's not normal. It's showing up in the sun and the moon and the stars. We have already got pictures of activity out of the core of the Milky Way, and if we have the pictures, that means the light has traveled this far, and we've taken a picture of it. That means that the cosmic waves and the gravity waves are probably not that far behind it. And that gets into Dr. Paul LaViolette and all his work. Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. Anyway, I'm going to depart from that. Larry, what have you got? I know Barry Rothman has a new Bible code out. Incredible what he's got.
Well, it is, Stewart, and and what you was talking about, I was thinking as you were sharing about the frequencies and the insanity level. Matter of fact, Barry Rothman, he ran a code called the stupidity virus, but he also ran some attacks upon humanity, in the mind, if you will. And he said this is an alien virus. It comes from without the earth, upon the earth. In other words, it's not of the earth, but it's of away from the earth that arrives, like an arrival, if you will. And it really ties in. And I was thinking as you was talking, Stewart, how that it's almost unexplainable, the hate for Donald Trump. It's almost, even if you believe it's demonic, which it is, but yes, the level of hate that increases daily on a daily basis of Donald Trump hating someone that has never done anything to these people. He never did anything personally to them at all. Yet the hate level it's phenomenal, Stewart. You can't even hardly talk about it because the only scale that I can remember biblically is when they decided to kill Jesus. I mean, that hate level was in that that same insanity level.
Yeah, and then, get guys wear a mega hat, and all of a sudden they're beat up on the street. I mean, that kind of activity is it's just pure hatred, and it has to do with frequencies, and it has to do with the mind, and and mankind basically have always thought that the Great Tribulation is a time when, because mankind refused to acknowledge they had fallen, and they refused to acknowledge their real nature, and they've tried to cover it up. At the time of Jacob's trouble, the time of tribulation, something changes, and that nature comes to the surface where everybody can see it. And because you can see it physically happening all around you, is a display of the fallen nature of humanity, which evidently people can't see now. I mean, if you pay any attention to the scripture, all you got to do is look around, and Larry, as a police officer, has many times probably seen the dark side, or the Darth Vader, Dark Prince side of people. It's there. But now it's going to come to the surface, because mankind refuses to acknowledge its fallen, and because it refuses its fallen state, denies it needs a Redeemer, who is the Messiah, the Lord Jesus Christ, the one who put the universe into a box, closed the cover on the box, and all but threw away the key. And here we are, locked in a prison house, just like he said in Isaiah, and he said it again. I believe it's in Matthew, where he says, I came to set the captives free, to release you from the prison house. We were in a prison house because we're fallen. And all of this ties back together. I mean, to me, the whole thing, I'm working on it. Just to remind everybody, there is a transit of Mercury on the 11th, 11/11. We'll pass directly in front of the sun. And then we have a solar wind incoming, because a new hole is opened up in the sun's atmosphere. Let's get to Perry's deal here.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Stewart. And something else that popped out at me when I was reading Barry's. Have you got the name of that CIA officer that has been revealed as the whistleblower?
Yeah, kind of Caramella or something like that.
Yeah, if you would read me the first three letters of his last name.
CIA.
What's the odds
I think
of
it's
that?
all plant.
What's the odds of that? That's you can't make this stuff up, Stewart. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that the guy that's a CIA plant that's come out after Trump to start the impeachment deal, the beginning letters of his last name, CIA, and he's a CIA analyst. And I mean, you really can't make it up. Listen to Rothman, actually, when he did this new Torah code, which he did yesterday, he made the comment. He said, if CIA officer Camarella is the whistleblower trying to start a civil war, then we see the fruit of letting a communist run the CIA, or should I say CIA Director John Brennan. This is a setup, Stewart. They're trying to start a war.
Well, that's what CIA is about, communist infiltration agency. That's what they do.
You're exactly right, Stewart. And what we've been watching since 2016 is a page out of the CIA playbook for coups in other countries to bring down presidents, except this time the CIA is operating unlawfully within our own USA. But anyway,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say that Barry Rothman on November the 7th ran this code, and he titled it Donald Trump Jr. alleges that Caramella is the whistleblower. And now here's 9 terms in the matrix that he ran, and it's still under construction, but I'll read those 9 terms. And you really can't make this up. This is in the Torah. Number 1, caramella. Number 2, whistle. Number 3, blower. Number 4, Pelosi. Number 5, Clinton. Number 6, Obama. Number 7, civil. Number 8, war. Number 9, Nadler. This lays out the plot, the communist plot, to bring the USA to destruction, Stewart.
Yep, this has been in the workings for a long, long time. I remember when we produced Iron Mountain Blueprint for Tyranny back in the 1990s. We brought all this stuff, a lot of this stuff out, and now it's all being confirmed totally. And everybody mocked, and everybody said, ha, 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 never happened here, never happened here. We're America, and it's never going to happen in America. Well, folks, it's already happened, and you're just watching the manifestation of the final phase of it. This is what's interesting to me. You've got Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, and Nadler, but Schiff is not mentioned. Now, does that mean that when Pelosi and Nadler undoubtedly appointed Schiff to run this, that he's the fall guy? If this goes bad, he's going to be the one who takes it all. I wonder. But, hey, it says what it says, Civil War. And this guy he's not even going to testify now, I guess.
Well, that's the latest.
Whistleblower lawyer reverses course, refuses to let client Eric Caramella speak to the Senate Intel Committee. Now, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because they just moved over, what's his name, over to the Intel Committee. He's a really sharp guy.
Jordan.
Who? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, they know Jordan knows the details, and they don't want his questioning of him. This is it's part of the coup, Stewart. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors is what it is. There's no truth in it. It's all lies and deception, but that's what a communist coup is.
Yeah, they don't know what the truth is. There is no truth in them, and they are murderers from the beginning, so I guess that tells us who their father is. And we live in a fallen planet, and guess who runs it? Until the Lord gets back, Satan is the leaseholder. Remember that Satan was taken up to took Jesus up to a high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms through all of time and said, if you just bow down and worship me, I'll give them to you. Well, Jesus didn't protest that, which is an acknowledgement that it was true. That Satan does have it, and he can give it to whomsoever he will, which is where you got your leaders. Guess who the leaders of the Psalm 2? Guess who they work for? They may not, probably a lot of them don't even know it because they don't believe in any of this stuff, but it doesn't change the truth of it. Whistleblower attorney tweeted of Trump coup and a rebellion. That was another code that Barry ran. He's got Caramella, Zaid, and then an F-RT. I'm not sure what that means. This guy, this lawyer, is a Trump hater to the nth degree, I guess, right, Larry? And if you tweet rebellion, revolution, and overthrow and a coup, isn't that treason?
Well, apparently not in America, Stewart. American media won't even let you use the word treason, and they won't let you use the word rebellion or coup. It's all Trump. Didn't we know that? It's all Trump. Trump, it's a total, complete insanity.
Yeah, and it's getting very, very dangerous. Here's some Sorchafal, so you can, put on your, red alert. You never know. Impeachment coup against Trump warned paves the path to jail for top Obama-Clinton officials. And astounding, you just can't make this stuff up, report noting that Washington perceiving with interest Moscow's invitation for President Donald Trump to attend a celebration of the 75th anniversary of victory over Nazi Germany in May 2020, says this interest by the United States in having Trump celebrate with President Putin and other world leaders the greatest wartime defeat of an enemy in modern history clearly shows the impeachment coup against America's leader is fully expected to be ended before this historic event takes place 6 months from now. And adding, fast approach, after it was revealed that Mark Zaid, I guess that's a leftist lawyer representing CIA whistleblower, sent out a message upon Trump taking office in 2017 declaring the coup has started, calling for impeachment and rebellion. We will get rid of him. And yet, nothing happens to these people, Larry. Nothing. And now I read, well, that a report that we were supposed to have has been delayed again. Folks, are we ever going to see the report? I think people really need to start asking a lot of questions about what's really going on here.
I did post it today, Stewart. I don't know whether you saw it or not, but Lou Dobbs had Joe DeNova and a couple more on, and they were saying that the IG report had been delayed. I put this on today's post, by the way, along with a video of it, link. The IG report had been delayed because now of the Durham grand jury, which is in progress with indictments coming. So, but Stewart, this also puts it on a level of extreme danger. Yes. Drudge Report headline. Listen to the Drudge Report headline, then I'll make a comment and get your comment. Drudge Report. The Dems want Trump impeachment done by Christmas. Dems with multiple articles of impeachment. Dems lower of the secret room. Who will betray the president? And so what we've got going, Stewart, is it appears that they have to get him out by Christmas or the end of this year. They cannot allow him to go any further than this, which I've always said that really the coup it's already out in the open. The communist coup is so far down the road now they can't stop it. It's impossible to stop it. They can't backtrack anymore. They're caught. So once you've got a coup in the open, you ain't got anywhere to go, Stewart. So, which means we're in a great danger of a false flag or some major betrayals in this government. Yeah. They definitely want to bring and have to bring Trump down. And even if it's all just stage play and entertainment for the masses while something else is going on in the background, who knows? But they've been working on this for a long, long time, folks. They have infiltrated the educational system, the pulpits, all government levels, all the way up to the United Nations. It's all deep state. This is a communist operation. The United Nations is a communist operation. When you talk about UN peacekeepers, you're talking about military communist troops. People really need to understand what's going on here. A UN takeover is a communist military takeover. That's what it is. That's why martial law, you lose the Constitution totally. There are no Bill of Rights. You either do what you're told or you're simply shot. And we have allowed this to get this far. And like Larry said, now they're wide open. They're coming at it full steam ahead. And they've got these operatives in deep state. And if they can't get Trump this way, they'll kill him. They killed John Kennedy. They're not above killing anybody, and this is just the way it goes.
And America goes down, unfortunately, for deep state. Evidently, they didn't read their Bibles, because the Bible clearly laid out that these deep state operatives of what they were going to do, and they're doing it. And when they have done what the Lord wants them to do, He's going to kill them all and take them to eternal hellfire, which they mock at and laugh and think that's a big joke. Well, I've seen part of it. It ain't no joke. It's real. And one thing, it's horrible. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing that's interesting about the fact is, you remember in history who they blamed the killing of John Kennedy on, President Kennedy. They blamed it on Russia. Remember? They tracked it back, they said, to Russia. And guess what's happening today? And we do get some clues, believe it or not, from Sartre and other groups of people that Russia, Putin already knows where they're going with this. If they do take Trump out, they'll blame it on Russia. And it's not by, I guess you could say, accident that Russia has a large number of nuclear submarines, nuclear missile-armed submarines in the Atlantic.
Yeah, and they were dumped out there a little bit ago, and they're still there, and it's going to be for 2 months. So that takes it all the way through to December, and that gets very, very interesting. Folks, just a little bit. You may remember when Allenby retook Jerusalem in 1917. He did so on the 20th and the 4th day of the 9th month. Now, you might say, well, so what? What's that got to do with it? Well, December 12th this year is the 20th and the 4th day of the 9th month. And if you go into Haggai, he says that when that day occurs, we don't know what year, I will once again shake the kingdoms, the earth, and I will destroy the kingdoms. That does not sound like that's too pleasant. And what's very, very interesting about this December 12th, it's an actual 12, 12, 12, because 2019, if you add it across, is 12. So you've got December, which is the 12th month, 12th day, and then the year adds up to 12. So you got a 12, 12, 12. 12 in the Bible is a very complete number. And I believe that if we're going to have trouble, and the Lord is going to start overthrowing the kingdoms, it could very well be before we get into January of next year. We're just going to have to wait and see. Here's a headline, Larry. I want your comments on it. U.S. military ops in Syria getting complicated for Washington. Now, Trump said, well, we're going to remove everything, but then we're getting reports they're pouring in there like by the hundreds. What's going on? Have you got any latest on that at all?
Well, we've got, of course, on the other hand, we've got the situation with Iran, and, you know, they're basically going full broke for nuclear weapons, and the world seems to be totally ignoring that. I don't think our military is. I think we're pumping military into that region for a specific purpose, and actually, Netanyahu, who's still functioning, even though he doesn't really have a government particularly, he called out the world today, basically, and told them, you've got to stop Iran, you have to do it now. And so, sooner or later, either the U.S. or Israel is going to take Iran on. I think part of the problem, Stewart, though, is, and you know it as well as I do, that deep state is not following Trump's orders. The deep state's simply not going to do that. And a lot of the stuff that's happening in the Middle East, deep state's bucking Trump, militarily even. Mm-hmm. So we're in the most dangerous time any nation could ever be for the complete undermining of the leader of this country by its own government. That's a phenomena Americans have never seen.
Yeah, it's getting so strange. They're irrational. Everything is becoming more and more irrational as we go through this thing, which is, of course, probably due to this Shumann resonance and the increasing frequencies that we're seeing. And the governments, everybody's affected. I mean, there's no way you can not be affected. And I was wondering, Larry, when we were going back over that, you remember when CDC and even our military and the military over there in England and everything, they were fooling with this zombie stuff?
Yeah.
And even had military maneuvers?
Listen, our own military has quietly been doing drills to combat zombies here in America. This is going on behind the scenes. And why would they come up with all the movies about zombies that just go insane if there's no reason to? And, our military, it wouldn't drill to combat zombies if there was never going to be a zombie, okay?
Exactly. So we have two choices, chemtrail, and they're putting in some sort of a virus that's going to create zombies, or the rise in frequencies affects different people different ways. Now, I read an article, now, you can read anything you want, but it made a very interesting point that Jade Helm exercises were to practice fighting zombies.
Well,
more than they were to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you'll remember, when I read pretty closely at what the Jade Helm setup was, most of that was at military bases, and the defense systems were set up to actually repel invaders around these bases. Somebody that was going to attack the bases themselves. And Stewart, I was wondering too, and I'd like your comment on this. The term, the biblical term reprobate. Could it possibly be that a resonance could reach a point where people go over to completely a reprobate mind in mass?
I think so. I think maybe that's what it's getting at. You're either going to be protected by the Lord Jesus Christ, or you are going to be turned over by this frequency increasing, and it's all beginning to come together, and it's making a lot more sense than ever before when you start digging into the mind and frequencies and emotions and how all of that works. And the lower emotions are sadness and all that, but the higher emotions are love and peace and all that. Well, what is the New World Order always talking about? Love and peace, and we've all got to get together, and we've all got to love one another. Again, I bring out the question, what kind of a love are they talking about? From a practical point of view, the New World Order is socialism. That is their definition of love, because if you love people, you will share whatever it is you have. And if you won't share it, well, then there's a problem here, and we're going to have to take what you have forcefully and redistribute the wealth, right? That's the way it sounds.
Their angle that they're coming from, true love, is doing what you're told.
Yes. The beehive and the beehive mind. I remember when Madeleine Albright, when she was ambassador to the United Nations, very often would wear this great big honeybee, on her coat. And very, very interesting, because if you really take a look at the honeybee and the beehive mind, it all starts to come together as to what this new world order really is all about. And we're seeing shades of that, of course, in China with their social credit system and their total control over everyone. And I think all of this ties back to what we're entering into here with frequencies accelerating. And I don't know, what else have you got, Larry, before we close down?
Yeah, I was just going to mention something that might dovetail into that. because China and most of the world, even our own allies, are going ahead full speed with this 5G, that high-frequency system. And I've heard some whistleblowers involved in the Deep Black project say that 5G is the lowest realm that off-worlders, or if you will, the arrival of the alien folks and the other dimension operatives, that's the lowest, that's the closest communication level that we can reach. That when we reach 5G, we can communicate with them.
Well, that's very, very interesting. In fact, this 5G, as you know, Donald Trump's been pushing it. Now they've got all these satellites going up to bathe the entire planet in 5G. They're paying absolutely no attention to the health effects that it has, which are tremendous on a lot of people. I guess it depends on how susceptible you are to EMF frequencies and stuff like that. And even Wi-Fi, a lot of people are very susceptible to just simple Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G technology. And the warnings about 5G and 6G, and they're even going above that now for research, are probably, they don't care, because it reminds me of the movie The Arrival, where they were literally terraforming the planet so that the aliens that were in that movie could operate on the surface more, if I recall that movie correct. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stewart, and it makes me think, as you were talking, maybe the environment of Earth needs to be 5G for those things to land and operate and function properly, and maybe those below can come out.
Yeah, this is, folks, they are going to come out from down below, whoever they are, and we got a lot of stuff on Antarctica that we haven't covered lately, but they're finding all kinds of stuff down there. And I want to close with this headline because it's very, very important. Big Pharma is officially partnering with the tech industry to pair immunization with digital biometrics, meaning humans will soon be microchipped, tracked, and ultimately controlled through a global identification matrix. We'll probably try and get into that at another time, but it has to do with the mark of the beast, of course. And a lot of folks are giving the warning that the mark of the beast, if you take it, it will change your DNA. And I believe that that's undoubtedly a true statement, that it will change your DNA. And that is why, if you take it, you have damned yourself forever, because you're unredeemable at that point. You're not even a human. And this is what transhumanism is really all about. What else you got, Larry, before we shut down?
Well, I was just going to mention real quick that we also need to remember Barry's code that he ran, talking about an asteroid threat that's encoded in the Torah with a date of September the 1st, 2020. And we'll go into that maybe the next show, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot going on. 2020 and 2021 are 5780, where we're at now, Hebrew calendar, and 5781, that takes in the 2020 election time frame.
Yeah, we are moving, folks, into an era of really high alert because they got to do something. The communists have come this far. They've spent literally billions and billions and billions of dollars. They've infiltrated everywhere they can possibly to bring America down, and they can't back off, like Larry said. Now they have to go for broke. And whatever that means, that's what it means, and probably false flags and total chaos. If not this year or this fall, it's pretty cold up here. I don't know if they can get anybody to go outside and revolt, but they'll maybe do it next summer. Who knows what the Lord has in mind, and who knows what Deep State has in mind. Anyway, thanks a lot, Larry, for coming on, and folks, I'm going to try and do a special report on it, but I'll let you know via email when I get it ready. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. Take care. Heads up. Good night.